my voice shatters the air as I throw myself between the security guard and the trembling boy. My heart nearly explodes when I see the distinctive crack across the vintage Timex on his thin wrist. The same watch my brother Ethan wore when he disappeared without a trace. Tears flood my eyes as memories assault me. Ethan's laugh. The empty bedroom I still can't bear to enter. The 5 years of agony, wondering if he's alive or dead. The boy clutches a loaf of bread against his hollow chest, his terrified eyes meeting mine as the watch's damaged second-hand stutters forward in that familiar, broken rhythm that has haunted my dreams. My name is Louise Carter. I'm 28 years old, and until that moment in the supermarket, I was just another cashier working paycheck to paycheck, clinging to fading hope. I never imagined the shoplifting incident would unravel the mystery that consumed 5 years of my life, for that a broken watch could finally lead me to the truth about my missing brother. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys of connection and redemption. Share your own experiences of unexpected encounters that changed your life in the comments below. The watch had been our father's last gift to Ethan before the car accident that took Dad from us. Mom always said the vintage Timex was worth more in sentiment than money. Ethan wore it religiously, even after the crystal cracked when he fell from our treehouse at 14. He refused to have it repaired, saying the crack gave it character, like a battle scar. When Mom's cancer came 3 years later, Ethan became my rock. He deferred college to help with her care, working night shifts at the warehouse while I finished high school. We'd sit together during Mom's chemo sessions, Ethan absently tracing the crack on his watch face, promising we'd make it through. We didn't know then that only 2 of us would. After Mom died, it was just Ethan and me against the world. He finally started community college while I worked at the supermarket. We shared a small apartment, splitting bills and responsibilities. Ethan was finally living for himself, studying engineering and talking about designing prosthetics. The future seemed possible again. Then came the morning I woke to find his bed empty. At first I wasn't worried. At 23, Ethan was entitled to his own life. But when he didn't answer my texts, concern crept in. His wallet and phone were gone, but the leftover pasta he'd promised to eat for lunch still sat in the refrigerator. Most telling of all, his backpack with his textbooks remained untouched. By the door, Ethan would never miss class. The police took a report but didn't share my urgency. Young men sometimes need space, they said. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Ethan's phone eventually disconnected. His friends knew nothing. His professors asked when he'd return. I plastered the city with missing person flyers. I walked the streets at night, searching homeless encampments. I called hospitals weekly. I created social media pages that gathered sympathy but no leads. Strangely, it was Howard Mercer, a businessman I'd never met, who seemed most invested in finding Ethan. His company offered a substantial reward for information, citing community responsibility. I was grateful then, unaware of the twisted truth behind his interest. As the 1-year mark approached, people started suggesting grief counseling instead of search parties. By year 3, friends stopped asking about him. By year 4, I'd moved to a smaller apartment, keeping just a few of Ethan's things: his favorite books, his high school graduation photo, and a small box of odds and ends I couldn't bear to part with. The only thing missing was his watch, because Ethan would never willingly go anywhere without it. Every year on his birthday, I still called his disconnected number just to hear the voicemail recording I'd paid to keep active. "Hey, this is Ethan. Leave a message and I'll call you back." A promise perpetually unfulfilled. 5 years of birthdays. 5 years of Christmas presents never opened. 5 years of silence. Until today, when my brother's watch appeared on the wrist of a terrified, starving boy trying to steal bread. "He's my nephew," I lied to Mr. Granger, the store manager. "Family emergency. I'll pay for the bread." Granger's eyes narrowed. In 3 years as his employee, I'd never mentioned a nephew. But my hand trembled as I thrust a $5 bill toward him, and something in my expression must have conveyed my desperation. "Take the day off, Louise," he said finally. "Family first." The boy remained frozen beside me, thin fingers still clutching the bread like someone might snatch it away. He couldn't be older than 15, with hollow cheeks and dark circles beneath wary eyes. His oversized jacket hung from bony shoulders, and his sneakers were held together with duct tape. "I'm Louise," I said as we exited the store. "What's your name?" He stared at the ground, silent. "I'm not going to hurt you," I continued. But that watch you're wearing. His free hand immediately covered the Timex, a protective gesture that spoke volumes. Please, I whispered. My brother Ethan wore that watch. He disappeared 5 years ago. His eyes flickered up, then down again. Still nothing. I just want to know how you got it. Silence stretched between us as a brisk October wind swirled fallen leaves around our feet. The boys shivered. My apartment is 2 blocks away, I offered. You can eat there. Get warm. No police, I promise. After a long moment, he gave an almost imperceptible nod. We walked in silence to my small 1-bedroom above the laundromat. The constant hum of dryers below created white noise that had helped me sleep through years of nightmares. Inside, the boy's eyes darted around, cataloging exits. He flinched when I closed the door, though I was careful not to make sudden movements. Bathroom's through there if you need it, I said, gesturing. I'll make some soup to go with that bread. While he used the bathroom, I quickly texted my manager that I'd had a family emergency and wouldn't be back today. Then I heated chicken soup, the kind with extra noodles that Ethan always preferred when sick. When the boy emerged, he'd washed his face, revealing a sprinkling of freckles across his nose. A dark bruise colored his left cheekbone. Soup's ready, I said, keeping my voice light, despite the rage that flared at the sight of his injury. Who had hurt this child? He ate like someone who hadn't seen food in days, tearing the bread into chunks and soaking up every drop of broth. I noticed a pronounced limp when he'd walked to the table, and as his sleeve rode up, I glimpsed angry red marks circling his wrist. I'm not going to force you to talk, I said when he'd finished, but I'd really like to know your name. He stared at the empty bowl for so long, I thought he'd remain silent. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. Max, I repeated, offering a gentle smile. Thank you for trusting me with that. I cleared our dishes, giving him space. When I returned, I sat across from him rather than beside him, maintaining distance. Max, that watch is very special. It belonged to my brother Ethan. His fingers went to it again, protective. Ethan disappeared 5 years ago. Nobody has seen him since. Max's eyes flicked up to mine, then back to the table. When I saw his watch on your wrist, my voice broke. Please, if you know anything about him. Max shook his head vehemently, then whispered, I never met your brother. The words hit like a physical blow. My first real lead in years, suddenly extinguished. Can you tell me how you got the watch? Max curled into himself, shoulders hunching defensively. I can't or won't. They'll hurt you too, he whispered, eyes darting to the window. The rest of the afternoon passed in uncomfortable silence. I showed Max the folding couch where he could sleep and gave him a clean t-shirt of mine to use as pajamas. He accepted, both with downcast eyes, his body language screaming exhaustion. I busied myself making calls, first to my other job at the diner to say I couldn't come in, then to Derek, my oldest friend, and the only person who still entertained my theories about Ethan. Derek had helped me maintain the search website and social media accounts even as others drifted away. His voicemail picked up, and I left a cryptic message asking him to call back urgently. Around 8, I made sandwiches. Max ate his, in small, methodical bites, eyes constantly drifting to the windows and door. I pretended not to notice how he'd slipped half his sandwich into his pocket, preparing for escape or for hunger later. Either possibility broke my heart. I'm going to take a shower, I told him afterward. The TV remote's there if you want to watch something. I kept my shower brief, not wanting to leave him alone too long. When I emerged in my pajamas, he was exactly where I'd left him, perched on the edge of the couch, staring at the blank television. Not a TV fan, I asked. He shrugged. Never had one. The casual admission of poverty struck me. Well, the bathroom's all yours if you want to clean up. There's a new toothbrush in the drawer. I settled into my bedroom with the door cracked open, not wanting to make him feel trapped but needing to hear if he tried to leave. Despite my exhaustion, sleep remained elusive. My mind raced with possibilities. Had Max stolen the watch? Found it? Been given it? And why did he seem so terrified? Most importantly, if Max had Ethan's watch, did that mean Ethan was truly gone? Or could my brother still be out there somewhere? Around 2 a.m, a floorboard creaked. I opened my eyes to see Max's silhouette creeping toward the front door, his few belongings clutched against his chest. You don't have to leave, I said softly. He froze, then slowly turned. I can't stay. They'll look for me. I sat up, keeping my movements slow. Who will look for you? Max. People you don't want to know. His voice quavered. I shouldn't have. Come here. I've put you in danger. I'm not afraid. You should be. He reached for the door. I stood, blocking his path without touching him. Please, at least tell me about the watch. His breathing quickened, eyes darting around like a cornered animal's. I promise I won't call the police, I said. I won't force you to stay. Just, ... Give me something. Anything about my brother. Max's fingers tightened around the watch. I told you, I never met him. Then, how did you get his watch? Silence stretched between us. Finally, he whispered, someone gave it to me. Who? A boy at Westridge. Westridge, the group home. Max nodded, reluctantly. What was his name? This boy, Tyler. Max's voice cracked. His name was Tyler. And where is Tyler now? Gone. The word fell like a stone. They took him away 6 months ago. He never came back. A chill ran through me. Took him where? I don't know. But before he left, he gave me the watch. Said it would protect me. Max's eyes met mine for the first time. It was special. He said it belonged to someone who helped kids escape. My heart pounded. Escape from what? Max shook his head violently. I can't. They'll find me. Who are they? Max, the people who run everything. The ones who make kids disappear. His breathing accelerated into near hyperventilation. Please. I need to go. I've stayed too long already. I made a split-second decision. It's the middle of the night. Stay until morning. At least, you can leave after breakfast if you still want to. He hesitated, weighing his options. I have locks on the doors and windows, I added. You'll be safer here than on the streets. Slowly, Max lowered his bundle of belongings. Just until morning, he agreed reluctantly. When he finally dozed off on the couch, I crept over to study the watch more closely. The crack across the crystal, the worn leather band, the slightly loose second hand that never kept proper time. It was undeniably Ethan's. With trembling fingers, I snapped a photo with my phone. As Max slept, I noticed he'd curled his body around the watch hand, protecting it even in slumber. When morning came, I found Max sleeping on the floor beside the couch, rather than on it. A habit, I guessed, born from nights when a bed wasn't an option. I moved quietly to the kitchen to start breakfast. The simple act of cracking eggs and brewing coffee steadying my trembling hands. You don't have to feed me again, Max said from the doorway, startling me. I want to. I gestured to the table. Orange juice in the fridge if you want some. He sat gingerly, as if expecting the chair to be yanked from beneath him. You called in sick to work. Not a question, but an observation. Yes, I confirmed, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs toward him. I thought we could talk more. Wariness flickered across his face. I told you, I'm leaving. And you can, I said, sitting across from him. But first I want to tell you about my brother Ethan, the one who owned that watch. Max tensed but didn't flee. Ethan was studying to become an engineer. He wanted to design prosthetic limbs for kids. I pulled out my phone, showing Max a photo of my brother, tall and lanky, with the same wavy brown hair as mine, his arms slung around my shoulders at my college graduation. He loved terrible sci-fi movies and could recite entire scenes from memory. He once stayed up for 36 hours straight to build me a bookshelf for my birthday. Max studied the photo, his expression unreadable. Ethan disappeared without a trace 5 years ago, I continued. The police eventually stopped looking. Friends stopped asking. But I never stopped believing he was alive somewhere. I swiped another photo, Ethan proudly displaying the watch on his wrist, the day our father gave it to him. That watch was his most prized possession. He wouldn't have parted with it willingly. My voice caught. So when I saw it on your wrist yesterday, it was like seeing a ghost. Max's fingers traced the watch face, running along the crack. Tyler said it was special, that it saved him once. Tyler, the boy from Westridge who gave it to you. Max nodded. What did he tell you about it? Not much. Max shifted uncomfortably. Just that someone named Ethan helped him get away from the farm and gave him the watch to remember him by. My heart stuttered. The farm? I don't know what it is. Tyler wouldn't talk about it much, just said it was a bad place where they send troublemakers. I struggled to keep my voice steady. And Tyler gave you the watch because ... He said they were coming for him, that he'd been caught making calls he shouldn't. Max's voice dropped to a whisper. The night before they took him, he gave me the watch and said it would protect me like it protected him. A knock at the door made us both jump. Max was on his feet instantly, looking for escape routes. "It's okay," I said, recognizing the familiar pattern. "It's just my neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy." The elderly woman's concerned face appeared as I opened the door. "Louise, dear, I noticed you were home instead of at work. Are you ill? Family situation?" I said, the half-truth coming easily. Her sharp eyes peered past me, spotting Max. "I see." Mrs. Abernathy had been a registered nurse before retirement and possessed both boundless compassion and fierce protectiveness toward those she deemed vulnerable. She'd looked after me during the worst days after Ethan vanished. "This is Max," I said. "He's staying with me for a bit." "Wonderful to meet you, Max," she said, not pressing for details. "I've brought banana bread, still warm." Max stared at her, clearly unaccustomed to kindness without strings attached. "Thank you," he mumbled. Mrs. Abernathy settled at the table, like she belonged there, cutting thick slices of banana bread. "Louise, when you have a moment, I'd like to discuss something with you." The meaningful look she gave me spoke volumes. Mrs. Abernathy knew something. "Max, would you mind giving us a moment?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded, taking a slice of banana bread to the living room. Once he was out of earshot, Mrs. Abernathy leaned forward. "That boy is from Westridge, isn't he?" I stared at her, shocked. "How did you know?" "My nephew Kevin worked there briefly last year before quitting in disgust," she whispered. "The things he told me." She shook her head grimly. "Whatever that boy is running from, I believe him." After Mrs. Abernathy left, promising discretion and support, I found Max examining the watch more closely than I'd seen him do before. "What are you looking at?" I asked. He hesitated. "Tyler showed me something once." His fingers worked at the back of the watch, popping it open with surprising expertise. Here I leaned closer. Inside the case, barely visible against the metal, was a tiny etching, a series of numbers. "What is that?" I asked, squinting. "Coordinates," Max said. "Tyler said they were important." My hands trembled as I took a photo with my phone. "Did Tyler say who put them there?" Max shook his head. "Just that it wasn't there when he first got the watch. The person who helped him escape added it later." The implication hit me like a physical blow. Ethan might have added those coordinates, which meant he'd been alive after his disappearance, potentially helping others escape from somewhere. "Max, this could be a real lead." I could barely contain my excitement. "Do you know where these coordinates point to?" "No." He closed the watch carefully. "Tyler wouldn't say. Just that it was where they kept people." My phone buzzed. Derek, finally returning my call. I answered immediately. "Louise, what's going on?" Your message sounded urgent. "I found Ethan's watch." The words tumbled out. "It's on the wrist of a boy who got it from another boy, who says he got it from Ethan, and there are coordinates engraved inside." Silence. Then, "Holy shit, are you serious?" "Deadly. Can you come over and bring your laptop?" "I'll be there in 20. He hung up. I turned back to Max, who was watching me warily. "Derek is my friend. He's been helping me look for Ethan since the beginning." "Is he police?" Max asked sharply. "No, computer programmer, total nerd, completely harmless." I sat beside him, careful to maintain some distance. "Max, I know you're scared, but I think you've just given me the first real clue to finding my brother in 5 years. His eyes darted to the door, calculating. "You don't have to stay," I added quickly. "But if you do, I promise I'll protect you. Whatever you're running from, whoever is after you, they'll have to go through me first." A flicker of something hope. Perhaps his face. "You can't protect me from them. Nobody can." "Who are they?" "Max, please, I need to understand." He drew a shaky breath. "People with money, power. They run Westridge and other places like it. They pick which kids get sent to the farm. What happens at the farm?" His shoulders hunched. "Work, all day, every day. No school, no visitors. If you complain or try to run." He rubbed absently at the scars on his wrists. My stomach churned. "How do you know this if you've never been there?" "Kids talk. The ones who come back are different, broken." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Most don't come back at all." A knock at the door announced Derek's arrival. Max tensed, but stayed put. As I let Derek in, Derek had been Ethan's friend before becoming mine, bonded by a shared love of obscure computer games. His loyalty during the search had been unwavering, even when others drifted away. His eyes widened at the sight of Max. Then, locked onto the watch, that's Ethan's, yes. I made quick introductions, explaining what we knew. Derek opened his laptop on the kitchen table. May I see the coordinates? Max reluctantly removed the watch, handling it like something precious before passing it to Derek, who carefully opened the back. These are definitely GPS coordinates, Derek confirmed, typing them into his computer. The map zoomed to a rural area about 50 miles outside the city. What's there? I asked, peering at the screen. According to public records, nothing much. Some farmland owned by a company called Meridian Agricultural Holdings. Derek clicked through property records. Looks like they bought it 6 years ago. Before that, it was a dairy farm. Meridian? Max repeated, his face falling. Das them who? Derek asked. The people who run Westridge. Their logo is on all the paperwork. Derek typed rapidly, pulling up business registries. Meridian Agricultural is a subsidiary of ... Mercer Industries. The name hit me like a thunderbolt. Howard Mercer, the businessman, who offered the reward for information about Ethan. Derek nodded grimly. The very same. The pieces began to fall into terrible alignment in my mind. He wasn't trying to help find Ethan, I whispered. He was trying to find out who was looking for him. Derek's research continued deep into the afternoon, revealing disturbing connections. Mercer Industries had subsidiaries overseeing 7 group homes across the state, all feeding into agricultural training programs for troubled youth. The public records painted a picture of rehabilitation and job training, but the reality Max described was far darker. It's human trafficking, Derek said, voice tight with anger. They're using the foster system to funnel vulnerable kids into forced labor. I paced the apartment, sick with rage and fear. We need to go to the police. No. Max's outburst startled us both. They own the police. Not all of them, Derek argued. Enough, Max insisted. Why do you think no one listens when kids report abuse? Tyler tried. He showed a social worker his bruises. The next day, he disappeared to the farm. I remembered the detective who'd handled Ethan's case, how quickly he'd dismissed my concerns, how thoroughly uninterested he'd been in following leads. We need evidence, I decided. Something concrete the authorities can't ignore. I might know someone who can help, Derek said, pulling out his phone. A friend from college works at the Tribune, Noamara Jones. She's been investigating corruption in the foster care system. While Derek made the call, I sat beside Max, who'd grown increasingly anxious. You should leave, he said quietly. Pack a bag and go somewhere they can't find you. I'm not running, I told him. Not when I'm finally close to finding Ethan. You don't understand what they're capable of. Then help me understand, I said gently. Tell me what happened to you, Max. He stared at his hands for a long moment. My mom died when I was 11. Odd. No dad in the picture. Foster care for a while, then Westridge when I was 13. His flat tone couldn't disguise the pain beneath. It was okay at first. Then I started asking questions about kids who disappeared. That's when the trouble started. What kind of trouble? Isolation, punishment for made-up rule violations. Then they started drugging my food. His fingers traced the watch face. That's when Tyler gave me this. 2 days later, they took him, said he was being transferred, but his stuff was still there. I knew what really happened. And you ran away. He nodded. Been on the streets almost 3 months. Stealing food, sleeping in parks or abandoned buildings. His voice cracked. I thought if I could find what these coordinates meant, maybe I could help Tyler. The other kids too. My phone chimed with a text message. Unknown number. Stop looking. I showed it to Derek, who'd just finished his call. They know, Max whispered, eyes wide with fear. How would they know? I demanded. We've only been researching for a few hours. Derek's expression darkened. Your apartment could be bugged. Or, ... He hesitated. Or what? How did Mercer know about Ethan in the first place? Derek asked quietly. Why offer a reward for a random missing person, unless ... Unless Ethan found something. He shouldn't have, I finished. The terrible logic clicking into place, and they've been watching me ever since, making sure I don't find it too. We need to move, Derek said, closing his laptop. Now, Amara agreed to meet us, but not here. Where? I asked. My cousin's hunting cabin. It's off-grid, about an hour. North, no internet, no cell service, unless you hike up the ridge. Derek was already packing his computer. We'll take my car, but But first we need to ditch your phone. My phone. If they're tracking you, that's how. We'll stop and buy burners on the way. The urgency in his voice spurred me to action. I threw clothes and toiletries into a backpack, along with the folder containing all my notes on Ethan's disappearance. Max, I looked at the boy, who stood frozen by the window. You don't have to come with us. Fear ward with something else on his face, hope perhaps, or determination. Tyler said Ethan was a hero, he said finally, that he helped kids escape, even though it put him in danger. His fingers tightened around the watch. I want to be brave like that. My throat tightened. You already are. 10 minutes later, we slipped out the back exit of the laundromat, leaving my phone buried in a neighbor's trash can. As Derek's car pulled away, I noticed an unmarked sedan parked across the street. Its driver speaking into a radio. They were watching. Had been all along. I slumped down in the seat, my hand finding Max's shoulder. It's going to be okay, I promised, with more conviction than I felt. He looked at me with eyes too old for his face. No, he said quietly, but maybe we can make it better. Derek's cousin's cabin was little more than a weathered one-room structure with a wood stove and sparse furnishings, but it felt safer than anywhere I'd been in years. No electricity meant no electronic surveillance, and the dense forest surrounding us would make it difficult for anyone to approach unnoticed. Mrs. Abernathy arrived an hour after us, having taken a circuitous route to ensure she wasn't followed. She brought medical supplies, food, and a fierce determination that surprised me. My nephew tried to report what he saw at Westridge. She explained, unpacking homemade stew and cornbread, filed complaints with 3 different agencies. Each time, the paperwork disappeared. When he pushed harder, he started receiving threats. What exactly did he see? I asked. Mrs. Abernathy's lips pressed into a thin line. Children being drugged, records falsified, kids who asked too many questions disappearing overnight, supposedly transferred to other facilities. She glanced at Max. He suspected trafficking but couldn't prove it. As we ate, Derek kept watch by the window, his laptop running on battery power as he dug deeper into Mercer Industries holdings. Amara should be here soon, he said, checking his watch. She said she's bringing someone who might help us understand what we're dealing with. Max sat close to the wood stove, the dancing flames reflected in his eyes. Do you really think your brother is still alive? He asked me softly. The question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. I have to believe he is, I said. Especially now, knowing he was helping others escape after his disappearance. Tyler said the person who gave him the watch was sick, Max said hesitantly. Injured, that's why he couldn't escape himself. The words landed like a blow. I'd imagined many scenarios, over the years, but the thought of Ethan injured and trapped somewhere was almost unbearable. All the more reason to find him, I managed. Headlights cut through the trees, and we tensed until 3 sharp honks. Derek's arranged signal confirmed it was Amara. The woman who entered was not what I expected. Young, barely 30, with close-cropped hair and intense eyes that missed nothing. Behind her came a man in his 20s, shoulders hunched, gaze darting nervously around the cabin. This is Javier, Amara introduced him. He worked at one of Mercer's farms until 8 months ago. Javier's handshake was tentative, his palm calloused from hard labor. When he saw Max, something like recognition flickered in his eyes. Westridge, he asked. Max nodded. Me too, before. The simple exchange confirmed what we suspected was a pipeline to the labor camps. Amara set up a digital recorder. I've been investigating missing foster kids for over a year, she explained, but everyone's too scared to go on record. Javier's the first. Because I'm leaving the country, Javier said, his accent thickening with emotion. My cousin in Mexico is waiting. After I tell my story, I disappear. Tell us about the farm, I urged, unable to wait. Did you know someone named Ethan? Javier's eyes widened. You know Ethan. My heart stuttered. He's my brother. He disappeared 5 years ago. Ethan, yes. Javier nodded vigorously. He was there when I arrived. Mechanic. Fixed tractors, equipment, very smart. He tapped his temple, always thinking. He's alive. My voice broke on the question. Was 6-7 months ago. Javier's expression grew somber. He helped kids escape, created distraction, broke trucks so guards had to leave farm to get parts. A small smile. Very clever. What happened to him? Derek asked when I couldn't. They caught him. December, maybe January. Big escape attempt. 5 kids got away. But Ethan. Javier made a slashing motion across his throat. They hurt him bad. Took him away. Took him. Where? I demanded. Special place. For punishment. Javier shuddered. They call it the box. Mrs. Abernathy placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. Do you know where this place is? Amara asked. Javier shook his head. Nobody knows. But they take troublemakers there. Some never come back. And the watch? I asked. Did you know about Ethan's watch? Yes. His secret. Javier's eyes lit up. He gave to kids who escape. Said it was ... how you say, breadcrumb trail. Left clues inside for someone to find. The coordinates, Max whispered, touching the watch. Javier, Amara pressed gently. What can you tell us about the labor operation? How many farms are there? How many children? As Javier detailed the horrific conditions, 16-hour workdays, inadequate food, punishments for those who couldn't meet quotas, I felt sick. This had been happening while I worked my cashier job, clinging to fading hope, never imagining the scale of what my brother had become entangled in. And Mercer? Derek asked. Did you ever see Howard Mercer at the farm? Twice. Javier's expression hardened. With important people, politicians, police. Showing them like ... like zoo. We need to expose this whole operation, Amara said, her recorder capturing every word, not just rescue individuals. We need to find Ethan first, I insisted. And the other kids, Max added quietly. A twig snapped outside, and we all froze. Derek moved to the window, peering cautiously through the curtains. Car coming, he whispered. Lights off. Police. Amara asked. Worse, Derek said grimly. Private security. Mercer's. People back exit. Derek whispered, grabbing his laptop. Through the bathroom window. We moved silently, Mrs. Abernathy helping Max while Amara collected her recording equipment. Javier looked terrified, his earlier courage evaporating at the prospect of being found. How did they find us? I hissed as we squeezed through the narrow bathroom window. Must have followed one of us, Amara replied. Or they're tracking Derek's car. The forest beyond the cabin was pitch black, the moonlight barely penetrating the dense canopy. Derek led the way with a small flashlight, guiding us toward a hunting blind he knew from childhood visits. We huddled there in tense silence, watching as flashlight beams swept through the cabin we'd just vacated. 3 men in tactical gear, moving with military precision. Not police private contractors. Who are they? Max whispered, trembling beside me. Mercer's enforcers. Javier breathed, barely audible. They find runners. After what felt like hours, the men returned to their Viacola black SUV, with no markings and drove away, but none of us moved, fearing it might be a trap. We need to split up, Amara finally said. I'll take Javier to my editor. Get his testimony on record immediately. What about the kids still at the farm? I asked. At the box? We can't just leave them there. We need help, Derek said. Real law enforcement, not local cops who might be on Mercer's payroll. FBI, Amara suggested. I have a contact, someone who investigates human trafficking. But we need concrete evidence, not just testimonies they can dismiss as troubled kids making up stories. The coordinates, Max said suddenly, pulling out the watch. What if they lead to proof? Derek checked his laptop, still running on battery. It's a property owned by Meridian Agricultural, 50 miles west. Satellite images show buildings, access roads. We should check it out, I said. Too dangerous, Mrs. Abernathy objected. These are armed men we're dealing with. We don't have to get close, I argued. Just close enough to document what's happening, get photos, video. Amara considered this. My contact won't act without evidence. And we need to move quickly before Mercer realizes how much we know. We should separate, Derek decided. Amara takes Javier to safety and contacts her FBI source. Louise, Max, and I can do reconnaissance at the coordinates. Mrs. Abernathy, you should go home. You'll be safer there, and you can be our emergency contact. The old woman looked ready to argue, but nodded reluctantly. My nephew may know more. I'll speak with him. We made our way back to the cars, moving quietly through the underbrush. The plan was for Amara to drop Mrs. Abernathy at a bus station, then take Javier to the Tribune's offices. Derek, Max, and I would drive toward the coordinates, ditching the car well before reaching the property to approach on foot. As we prepared to separate, Max suddenly seized my arm. Wait, he said, voice trembling. There's something I haven't told you. We all turned to him. About Tyler, he continued. The boy who gave me the watch. He told me something about Ethan, something important. What is it, Max? I asked gently. He said Ethan had a plan. A big one. That's why they took him to the box. Max swallowed hard. He was gathering evidence against Mercer. Names, dates, photos. Tyler said Ethan hid it somewhere no one would look. Did Tyler know where? Amara asked intently. Max shook his head. But he said it had something to do with the watch. That's why it was so important. I studied the watch in the dim light. Besides the coordinates, there was nothing unusual about it. Unless the second set of numbers, I realized suddenly. Inside the watch, beneath the coordinates, we thought they were part of the location. But what if there's something else? A password, a combination. Derek took the watch, examining the tiny engravings. They could be. The format is different. We need to figure out what they mean, I said. First priority is still reconnaissance, Amara insisted. Whatever Ethan hid won't help if we can't prove what's happening now. We agreed to reconvene in 24 hours at a motel. Amara suggested cash only. No cameras, owned by a Tribune source, who valued journalistic privacy. As we separated, Max hung back, catching my arm again. Louise, he said quietly. There's one more thing Tyler told me about Ethan. What is it? He said. Ethan talked about his sister all the time, that he was doing all this to protect you. Max's eyes were solemn in the darkness. Tyler said Ethan was afraid they'd hurt you if he tried to contact you. That's why he stayed away. The words hit me like a physical blow, validation of what I'd always believed. Ethan hadn't abandoned me. He'd been protecting me all this time. We're going to find him, Max, I promised, my voice thick with emotion, and we're going to make Mercer pay for what he's done. As we climbed into Derek's car, my phone buzzed with an incoming text. I'd forgotten about the burner phone Amara had given me. Unknown number, Gala, tomorrow night. All birds in one cage, last chance. What does that mean? Derek asked, reading over my shoulder. I don't know, I admitted, but I think someone's trying to help us. As we drove into the night, Max fell asleep in the back seat, still clutching Ethan's watch. In the faint glow from the dashboard, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Small, worn sticker inside the band. Not a sticker, a ticket stub, for the Mercer Industries annual charity gala, tomorrow night. It's an invitation, I told Derek, showing him the ticket stub. Someone wants us at the gala, or it's a trap, he countered, eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. Ethan left it in the watch for a reason. We'd parked on a Forest Service road 3 miles from the coordinates, planning to approach on foot at first light. Max slept fitfully, in the back seat, years of chronic stress evident in the way he startled at every sound. The gala is Mercer's big annual event, Derek said, researching on his laptop. Raises millions for his youth initiatives. Politicians, celebrities, business leaders, all attend. Perfect cover for his trafficking operation, I murmured. Humanitarian of the year by day, exploiting children by night. Security will be extreme. But Amara could get in as press, I suggested. And the text message, someone on the inside is trying to help us. Derek looked skeptical. It's too risky. Riskier than infiltrating a guarded labor camp. He couldn't argue with that logic. Dawn revealed a landscape of rolling farmland bisected by a gravel access road. Through binoculars, we observed a compound of prefabricated buildings surrounded by chain-link fence. Guards patrolled the perimeter, and in the distance, figures worked in vast fields. Small figures, too small to be adults. My stomach churned. Those are children. Max, now awake, took the binoculars. That's one of the farms, he confirmed. Like Javier described. We documented everything: the guard rotations, the children being marched to and from the fields, the watchtowers at each corner of the fence. A truck arrived mid-morning, and we watched as food supplies were unloaded under armed supervision. No one delivers that much security for vegetables, Derek muttered, snapping photos with a telephoto lens. Most disturbing was what happened when one child collapsed in the field. Rather than receiving medical attention, they were dragged to a small outbuilding. They didn't emerge before we had to retreat, our presence risking discovery with each passing hour. Back at the car, we contacted Amara, sharing what we'd found. My FBI contact is interested, she said, but needs more financial records. Internal documents proving Mercer's direct involvement. Testimonies aren't enough. These operations are designed with plausible deniability. The gala, I insisted. It's our chance to get inside Mercer's world. Too dangerous, Amara argued. If they recognize you, they won't. My mind was racing. I'll wear a disguise. You get me in as your assistant. And do what? Rifle through his desk while hundreds of people mingle nearby. No. I'd been formulating a plan since seeing the ticket stub. Ethan left this clue in the watch for a reason. The gala is where Mercer keeps his secrets. Reluctantly, Amara agreed to help, but insisted Max stay behind with Mrs. Abernathy. The boy protested until Javier intervened, explaining in rapid Spanish that he needed Max's help translating for other survivors. The truth was simpler. None of us wanted to risk the boy's safety. That evening, as we prepared for the gala, I studied my reflection in the motel bathroom mirror. Amara's friend from the Tribune's theater section had transformed me with a blonde wig, glasses, and makeup that altered the shape of my face. I barely recognized myself. Ready? Amara asked, professional in a black pantsuit with press credentials prominently displayed. Derek would provide technical support from the car, hacking into the venue's security cameras with equipment borrowed from Amara's more clandestine sources. As we drove toward the glittering hotel hosting the event, I touched the watch on my wrist. Ethan's watch, returned to me by Max for the mission. I'm coming, brother, I whispered. Hold on. The Mercer Humanitarian Gala transformed the Grand Plaza Hotel into a monument to hypocrisy. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above tables, laden with gourmet food, while waitstaff circulated with champagne worth more than my weekly salary, all to benefit disadvantaged youth. The same youth being worked to exhaustion in Mercer's labor camps. Amara moved confidently through the crowd, recorder disguised as a pen, interviewing minor celebrities about their commitment to children's causes. I followed with a notebook, the perfect invisible assistant. That's him, Amara murmured, nodding toward a distinguished man holding court near the stage, Howard Mercer. He looked exactly like his photo, silver-haired, tanned, with the practiced smile of someone accustomed to power. Beside him stood a severe woman I recognized from my research as Charlotte Mercer, his wife and the foundation's co-chair. The administrative offices are on the mezzanine level, Amara continued, smiling for the benefit of anyone watching. Hotel management confirmed Mercer has a private suite he's using tonight. Security? 2 guards at the elevator, keycard access only. I nodded, scanning the room. Service elevator. Staff access. Derek's working on it. My earpiece crackled softly. Kitchen staff use the service corridor, Derek's voice informed us. I can see it on the security feed, sending directions now. A phone buzzed with the information. I need a distraction, I said. Something to draw security away from the elevators. Leave that to me, Amara replied with a grim smile. Be ready in 10 minutes. She moved away, approaching a waiter with a tray of champagne. I watched as she deliberately stumbled, sending glasses crashing to the floor, then launched into a loud, impassioned speech about the real story of Mercer's foundation. Security converged immediately. I slipped away, following Derek's directions, to the service corridor. The staff keycard he'd electronically duplicated worked perfectly, giving me access to the back passages of the hotel. Mercer's private office suite was opulent, all dark wood and leather, with photographs of him alongside presidents and prime ministers lining the walls. I moved quickly, scanning documents, searching for anything connecting him to the farms. In a locked cabinet easily opened with the thin metal ruler from my purse, I found what we needed: ledgers tracking labor assets by ID numbers instead of names, with productivity metrics and discipline reports. Most damning was a map marking properties across the state, including the coordinates from Ethan's watch. I photographed everything, heart racing with each passing second. Security's heading back to position, Derek warned through my earpiece. Wrap it up. As I replaced the ledgers, a framed photo on Mercer's desk caught my eye, him with a security chief, beside a building labeled Special Rehabilitation Unit. In the background stood a small concrete structure separated from the main facility. The box. I snapped a photo just as footsteps approached in the hallway. Ducking behind a curtain, I held my breath as 2 security guards entered, sweeping the room. All clear, one reported into his radio. False alarm. After they left, I waited 2 excruciating minutes before slipping out and making my way back to the service elevator. The gala was still in full swing. Mercer now at the podium delivering a speech about second chances for troubled youth. His practiced sincerity made my skin crawl. I had almost reached Amara when a hand gripped my arm. I turned to find myself face to face with the security guard, whose scarred face triggered instant recognition. I'd seen him in Max's nightmares. In Javier's descriptions. "Do I know you?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "I don't think so," I replied, forcing a smile while my heart hammered. "I'm just Ms. Jones's assistant." He studied me a moment longer, then released my arm. "My mistake." As I rejoined Amara, she muttered, "We need to leave now." Outside, we slid into Derek's waiting car. "Did you get it?" he asked. I nodded, hands shaking as I removed the memory card from my camera. "Everything we need, including where they might be holding Ethan." As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of the scarred guard speaking into his radio, eyes fixed on our departing car. "He recognized me," I said quietly. "We don't have much time." By midnight, we'd regrouped at Mrs. Abernathy's house, the last place Mercer's people would look for us. The evidence I'd gathered was damning. Financial records showing millions diverted from charitable donations to shell companies, maps of processing centers where children were evaluated before assignment to various farms, and most crucially, a document bearing Mercer's signature authorizing enhanced discipline protocols for problem cases. "This is enough," Amara said, reviewing the photos. "My FBI contact can move with this." "How quickly?" I pressed. "Raid teams could be assembled within 48 hours. Too long," I insisted. "That guard recognized me. Mercer will start covering his tracks immediately." Max, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet since our return, suddenly spoke up. "What about the box? Did you find it?" I showed him the photograph of the concrete structure. "I think this is it. The special rehabilitation unit at the main processing center." He nodded solemnly. "That's where they took Tyler. Where they'd take your brother." Javier examined the photo, face pale. "See, T-box. Bitty bad place." Mrs. Abernathy's nephew Kevin had joined us, bringing information from his time at Westridge. "The processing center is their headquarters," he explained. "Kids get evaluated there before being sent to different farms based on physical capability." "And the resistant ones?" Derek asked. Kevin's expression darkened. "The box. Solitary confinement, sensory deprivation, sometimes worse. It breaks them." The thought of Ethan in such a place for months made me physically ill. "We can't wait for the FBI," I decided. "We need to move now, tonight, before Mercer can destroy evidence, or move the prisoners." Amara looked skeptical. "That's extremely dangerous. These people are armed professionals." "I'm not suggesting a frontal assault," I clarified. "Just reconnaissance. Document what's happening, identify where prisoners are held, then meet the FBI teams when they arrive." "Still too risky," Amara argued. "If you're caught, I have to try," I interrupted. "He's my brother." Derek sided with me. "We'll be careful. Just photos and video documentation, nothing confrontational." "I'm coming too," Max said firmly. "Absolutely not," Mrs. Abernathy and I replied in unison. "I know that place," he insisted. "I've heard descriptions from other kids. I can help." "It's too dangerous," I told him gently. "My whole life has been dangerous," he countered, a new determination in his eyes. "I want to help. For Tyler. For all of them." In the end, we compromised. Max would accompany us, but remain in the car with Derek, helping to coordinate via radio, while I approached the facility with Kevin, whose knowledge of Mercer's security protocols would be invaluable. Amara reluctantly agreed to wait for the FBI raid teams, working through her contact to expedite their deployment. Javier would remain with Mrs. Abernathy, providing additional testimony as needed. As we prepared to leave, I returned Ethan's watch to Max. "Keep this safe," I told him. "I'll be back for it." He studied me with eyes too old for his young face. "Be careful. These people ... they don't see kids as people, just things to use." I knelt to his level. "When this is over, we'll make sure they never hurt another child, I promise." "And if we find Ethan?" he asked quietly. "When?" I corrected. "When we find Ethan." The processing center was located on a former prison work farm, its remote location providing perfect cover for Mercer's operation. We parked a mile away in dense woods, then proceeded on foot. Kevin leading the way through gaps in the security perimeter he remembered from his brief employment. "Guards change at 2 a.m., he whispered as we crouched in the underbrush. "There's a 10-minute window when the northwest corner is unnated, right on schedule." The the patrol passed, and we darted across open ground to the shadow of an outbuilding. From there, we had a clear view of the main facility and the separate concrete structure identified as the box through night vision binoculars. I watched a guard deliver food to the building, unlocking a heavy door reinforced with steel. As the door opened, I glimpsed a narrow corridor lined with cell doors. "How many prisoners would they keep there?" I whispered. "No more than 6, Kevin replied. "It's reserved for the worst troublemakers or special cases. Like a missing person who knew too much." I snapped photos documenting guard positions and access points, everything the FBI would need for a successful raid. We were about to retreat when I saw him, this guard from the gala, emerging from the main building with a set of keys. He was heading toward the box. "We need to see who he's visiting," I whispered, moving closer despite Kevin's warning gesture. Using the darkness for cover, we circled toward the back of the box, where a small ventilation window provided a limited view inside. The scarred guard had entered a cell at the far end of the corridor. "Last chance, hero." His voice drifted out. "BOF is shutting down the operation, transferring assets overseas." A second voice responded, so weak I barely caught the words. "Go to hell." I froze. Though raspy and faint, I recognized it immediately. "Ethan." Kevin grabbed my arm as I instinctively moved forward. "Don't," he hissed. "We can't help him by getting caught." The rational part of my brain knew he was right, but every fiber of my being screamed to rush in, to reach my brother after 5 long years of searching. "They're moving him," I whispered. "We have to do something now." Before Kevin could respond, our earpieces crackled with Derek's urgent voice. "Incoming." Multiple vehicles approaching fast. From our position, we saw headlights cutting through the darkness, 3 black SUVs racing toward the facility. "It's happening now," I realized. "They're starting the transfer." Kevin pulled me back into deeper shadow as guards began mobilizing around the compound. "We need to retreat. Now." "I can't leave him," I protested. "You'll die if you stay," he countered bluntly. "And he'll still be trapped." My radio crackled again, but this time it was Max's voice, tight with fear. "Louise, they found us. Derek's stalling them, but you need to hurry." The situation was unraveling rapidly. I took one last desperate look at the box, knowing my brother was inside, so close yet unreachable. "We'll come back with the FBI," Kevin promised, reading my anguish tonight. I swear. Choking back a sob, I followed him into the darkness, racing back toward our extraction point. Behind us, floodlights blazed to life as the facility went on high alert. We found the car empty, with signs of a struggle. Derek's laptop smashed on the ground, Max nowhere in sight. "Derek, Max," I called as loudly as I dared. Movement in the trees made us both drop to a defensive crouch, but it was Derek who emerged, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. "Security patrol," he gasped. "They came out of nowhere. I fought them off, but where's Max?" I demanded. Derek's expression crumbled. "They took him." I tried to stop them. "Louise, I swear." But there were 3 of them. Horror washed over me. First, my brother. Now Max, both in Mercer's clutches because of me. "We need to move," Kevin insisted, helping Derek to the car. "They'll be searching the whole perimeter now." As we drove away, I contacted Amara, voice shaking as I relayed what had happened. "FBI teams are mobilizing," she assured me. "ETA for hours. They're treating it as a hostage situation now." "In 4 hours, Ethan and Max could be gone," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Mercer's moving everyone tonight. We don't have the resources to stop a full evacuation," Amara replied, frustration evident. "We need to let the professionals handle this." I ended the call, mind racing. We'd lost the element of surprise. Mercer knew we were coming, knew what evidence we had. He'd accelerate his timeline, destroying records and dispersing assets before law enforcement arrived. Worse, he now had Max leverage he wouldn't hesitate to use. "Take me back to Mrs. Abernathy's," I told Derek, decision crystallizing. "I need to make a call." "To whom?" he asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "Howard Mercer." Both men stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "He has my brother, and now Max," I explained. "He wants to silence us, so I'm offering myself in exchange." "That's suicide," Kevin protested. "No," I corrected. "It's a diversion. While Mercer's focused on me, the FBI can move in, and I'll make sure I'm exactly where they'll look first." "He'll kill you," Derek said bluntly. I touched Ethan's watch. which I'd reclaimed from the car floor where Max must have dropped it during the struggle. Maybe, I admitted, but I'm done hiding while people I love suffer. It's time to end this, tonight. I called Mercer Industries' emergency contact line, the one reserved for major donors. When the operator answered, I stated my name clearly and asked to speak with Howard Mercer regarding his labor acquisition program. I was put on hold for precisely 27 seconds before his voice came on the line. Miss Carter, he said smoothly, I've been expecting your call. I have your files, I replied, matching his calm tone. Financial records, transport manifests, disciplined reports, everything. My colleagues are prepared to release them to federal authorities and news outlets simultaneously. Yet here you are, calling me instead. I assume you want to propose a trade, my brother and the boy for me and the evidence. A soft chuckle. Your brother has been a persistent problem for years. What makes you think he's still alive? My breath caught, but I forced myself to continue. I heard him tonight, at your special rehabilitation unit. I know he's alive, and I know you're planning to move him. A lengthy pause. You've been busy. Do we have a deal? Come to the processing center, alone. Bring all copies of the evidence. If I'm satisfied you haven't held anything back, I'll consider releasing the boy and my brother. Your brother is a more complicated matter, but we can discuss that in person. I'll be there in an hour. We'll be watching your approach. Any sign of law enforcement, any attempt at surveillance, and both your brother and the boy will disappear permanently. The line went dead. Derek, Kevin, and Amara all vehemently opposed my plan, but I was beyond dissuasion. The FBI teams were still hours away, and Mercer was already evacuating his operation. At least let us provide backup, Derek pleaded. Too risky, I insisted. Mercer will have surveillance on every approach, but I need you to contact your FBI friend, I told Amara. Tell them where I'm going and why. Make sure they understand Mercer is moving prisoners tonight. You realize you're walking into a trap, she said. I'm counting on it. I fingered Ethan's watch. This was never just a sentimental item. Ethan turned it into a tool to expose Mercer. Now I'm going to finish what he started. With grim determination, I gathered what I needed: a USB drive containing copies of the evidence, Ethan's watch, and a small recorder Amara provided. For hours, I told them. If I haven't made contact by then, tell the FBI everything. Mrs. Abernathy hugged me tightly before I left. Your brother would be proud, she whispered. And so am I. I drove directly to the processing center as instructed, making no attempt to conceal my approach. Armed guards met me at the gate, confiscating my phone and searching me for weapons before escorting me to the main building. Howard Mercer waited in what appeared to be an administrative office, looking entirely at ease in an expensive suit despite the late hour. The scarred guard stood behind him, along with Charlotte Mercer, whose cold eyes assessed me with clinical detachment. Miss Carter, Mercer greeted me. I must admit, I've been curious to meet the sister Ethan spoke of so often. He painted quite the picture of your determination. Where is he? I demanded. All in good time. First, the evidence. I handed over the USB drive. Everything we found in your office at the gala, plus documentation of this facility. As he inserted the drive into a laptop, Charlotte spoke for the first time. Foolish girl. Did you really think we wouldn't have contingencies for exposure? I think you're scrambling, I replied evenly. Evacuating your operation, destroying records. I think you're afraid. Afraid. Mercer laughed, but there was no humor in it. My dear, we've been running this operation for 15 years. We have judges, police chiefs, even a senator on our payroll. This, he gestured to the laptop, is an inconvenience, nothing more. Then why am I here? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Because you made it personal. Your brother was disruptive enough, but manageable. You, however, have become a liability. We can no longer afford. Take me to my brother and Max, I demanded, ignoring the implicit threat. The boy first, Mercer decided, nodding to the scarred guard. Bring him. Minutes later, Max was shoved into the room, disheveled, but apparently unharmed. His eyes widened when he saw me. Louise, you shouldn't have come. Are you okay? I asked, stepping toward him only to be blocked by the guard. Max nodded, though fear radiated from him in palpable waves. They haven't hurt me, not yet. You have what you want, I told Mercer. Let him go. Not quite, Mercer replied. First, I need confirmation that you haven't shared this evidence with anyone else. My colleagues have copies, I stated plainly. If I don't contact them by morning, they'll release everything to the FBI and media. Charlotte made a dismissive gesture, a bluff. She wouldn't have come alone otherwise. Search her more thoroughly, Mercer ordered. The guard patted me down, again, finding the small recorder Amara had given me. Mercer smirked as he crushed it under his heel. Now, about your brother, he continued. He's been quite the disappointment. We identified his technical aptitude early on and offered him a position of responsibility maintaining our equipment. He could have had a comfortable life, yet he chose to sabotage our operations, help our property escape. My jaw clenched at his casual dehumanization of children. He chose basic human decency over comfort. That's not disappointment, that's courage. Semantics, Charlotte interjected coldly. The result is the same. He became a liability. Is he alive? I demanded. Mercer sighed theatrically. Yes, though not for lack of trying on his part. 3 escape attempts, each more desperate than the last. The final one cost several guards their lives. Take me to him, now. I don't think you understand your position, Miss Carter. You're not giving orders here. Either I see my brother, or my colleagues release everything at dawn, I countered. Your choice. Mercer considered me for a moment, then nodded to the guard. Take her to see the hero. Perhaps it will help her understand the futility of her situation. As we left the office, Max was held back by Charlotte. The boy's terrified eyes met mine. I'll be back for you, I promised him. The guard led me across the compound to the box, unlocking the heavy door with a set of keys. Inside, fluorescent lights illuminated a sterile corridor lined with metal doors. The air smelled of disinfected masking, something worse to spare perhaps. End cell, the guard grunted, unlocking the final door. The small concrete room contained nothing but a metal cot bolted to the floor. On it lay a figure so thin and still, I might have thought him dead if not for the slight rise and fall of his chest. His face was gaunt, hair matted, wrists and ankles scarred from restraints, but I would have recognized him anywhere. Ethan, I whispered, rushing to his side. His eyes flickered open, confusion giving way to disbelief as he focused on my face. Lou, his voice was a rasp, as if he'd screamed himself hoarse long ago. No, you can't be here. It's not safe. I found your watch, I told him, tears streaming freely now. I followed your breadcrumb trail. A ghost of a smile touched his cracked lips. Told you, she'd never stop looking, he managed, glancing toward the guard. Time's up, the guard announced, gripping my arm. Boss wants you back. I'm coming back for you, I told Ethan fiercely. Tonight, I promise. As the guard dragged me away, Ethan struggled to sit up. Lou, he called weakly. The nursery. The door slammed shut before I could ask what he meant. The nursery, I repeated to the guard. What's he talking about? Shut up and walk, he growled, shoving me back toward the main building. But as we crossed the compound, a distant sound broke the night's stillness. Sirens, growing closer by the second. Chaos erupted across the compound. Guards ran to defensive positions as alarms blared. My escort shoved me roughly toward the main building, barking orders into his radio. Early visitors, I commented, unable to suppress a grim smile. Looks like your boss's contingency plans aren't as solid as he thought. The guard's response was a backhand that split my lip. Inside the administration building, Mercer was barking orders while Charlotte methodically fed documents into a shredder. When they saw me, Mercer's face contorted with rage. You stupid girl, you brought them here. I came alone, just like you asked, I replied, tasting blood. But I'm not the only one who knows what you've been doing. His hand shot out, gripping my throat. Where is the real evidence? Where have you hidden it? Everywhere, I gasped. Media outlets, FBI field offices, cloud storage. It's over. Mercer. Charlotte abandoned the shredder, grabbing car keys from the desk. We need to leave now. Take what we discussed and meet me at the contingency point. And her, Mercer asked, still gripping my throat. Kill her, and the boy. No loose ends. Max, who'd been sitting silently in the corner, let out a small whimper. Charlotte, left without a backward glance, while Mercer released me, reaching into his desk drawer for a handgun. A pity, he said, aiming at my chest. You could have been quite valuable in our overseas operations. Before he could pull the trigger, Max lunged forward with surprising speed, crashing into Mercer's legs. The gun discharged, the bullet embedding in the ceiling as they tumbled to the floor. I didn't hesitate. Grabbing a heavy paperweight from the desk and bringing it down on Mercer's head with all my strength, he slumped, unconscious, or worse, the gun skittering across the floor. "Max, are you hurt?" The boy shook his head, eyes wide with shock at his own bravery. "We need to get to Ethan," I said, retrieving Mercer's gun and the keys from his pocket, and the other prisoners. Outside, the compound had descended into pandemonium. Some guards fled while others established defensive positions. In the confusion, Max and I slipped back toward the box, using outbuildings for cover. "The nursery," Max said suddenly. I know what Ethan meant. There's a building at the back of the compound. The younger kids called it the nursery where they kept the little ones, 4 to 8 years old. Horror washed over me. They're using toddlers for labor. Not yet. Their investments trained from an early age to be compliant workers. His voice shook with anger. Tyler told me about it, said it was the worst part of the whole operation. We need to get them out. All of them. The box was unguarded when we reached it, the guard having abandoned his post when the alarms sounded. I fumbled with Mercer's keys until finding one that unlocked the main door. Inside, 6 cells, lined the narrow corridor. I ran to Ethan's at the end, unlocking it with shaking hands. "Ethan, it's me. We're getting you out." He was still conscious, but terribly weak, unable to stand without support. I draped his arm across my shoulders, bearing his weight as we staggered into the corridor. "The others," he rasped. "Check the other cells." Max was already ahead of us, peering into each cell. "Empty," he reported. "They must have moved them already." "The nursery," Ethan insisted. "Charlotte. Taking them now." Understanding hit me like a physical blow. "She's evacuating the youngest children, the ones with no records, no one looking for them." We emerged into chaos. Flashing lights illuminated the compound as FBI teams breached the perimeter. Gunfire erupted sporadically, where some guards chose resistance over surrender. "There," Max pointed to a low building at the far edge of the compound, partially hidden by trees. A van was parked beside it, its rear doors open. Charlotte Mercer emerged, ushering a line of small children toward the vehicle. "Cover," I told Max, handing him the gun. "Stay with Ethan. If anyone threatens you, ... "I know what to do," he replied, with a grimness no child should possess. I left them concealed behind a storage shed and sprinted toward the nursery, using the chaos as cover. As I approached, I saw Charlotte roughly shoving children into the Vantini figures, some no older than preschoolers, silent and compliant in their terror. "Stop," I shouted, closing the distance. Charlotte turned, surprise quickly morphing into cold calculation as she reached into her jacket. I tackled her before she could draw her weapon, both of us crashing to the ground beside the van. She was stronger than her elegant appearance suggested, fingers clawing from my eyes as we struggled. But 5 years of grief and rage fueled me, lending strength I didn't know I possessed. "You're too late," she spat as I pinned her wrists. "This is just one operation of dozens. Cut off one head, save the speech," I interrupted, slamming her head against the ground hard enough to stun her. Using her own belt, I secured her hands behind her back. The children watched with wide, frightened eyes, none making any attempt to flee. The oldest, perhaps 8, stood protectively in front of the others. "It's okay," I told them gently. "You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you anymore." As FBI agents swarmed the area, I led the children away from the van, away from the woman who had stolen their childhoods, back toward Ethan and Max, who were emerging from their hiding place, toward freedom. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of ambulances, FBI interviews, and hospital corridors. Ethan was immediately hospitalized, severely malnourished and suffering from multiple untreated injuries. I refused to leave his side, even as agents gently but persistently questioned me about everything we'd discovered. Max stayed close as well, his natural wariness of authorities temporarily overcome by his concern for Ethan. The boy who had once flinched at sudden movements now fiercely guarded my brother's room, as if appointed his personal protector. Amara broke the story in the Tribune the next morning, her meticulous reporting laying bare the full scope of Mercer's operation. By afternoon, it had been picked up by national outlets. By evening, similar operations in 3 other states were being investigated. "You did it," Derek told me, visiting with coffee and actual edible food to replace the hospital cafeteria offerings. "You brought down their whole network." "Ethan did it," I corrected, watching my brother's too-thin chest rise and fall in sleep. "He left the trail for us to follow." Howard Mercer had survived my attack but faced multiple federal charges carrying life sentences. Charlotte had attempted suicide in custody, but survived and was now under 24-hour watch. Most of their security personnel had been arrested, though a few, including the scarred guard, remained at large. Most importantly, over 60 children had been rescued from the processing center and associated farms. The youngest were being placed with emergency foster families while authorities worked to identify them and locate relatives. "What happens to Max?" Derek asked quietly, watching the boy who had finally succumbed to exhaustion in a chair by the window. "I've applied for emergency guardianship," I replied. "Mrs. Abernathy is helping with the paperwork. And after that, one step at a time," I said, though in truth, I couldn't imagine letting Max go. In the space of a few days, he had become family. On the third day, Ethan was strong enough to talk for longer periods. The doctors had warned us his recovery would be slow. 5 months of isolation and mistreatment had left physical and psychological scars that would take time to heal. "I'm sorry," were among his first coherent words to me. "I wanted to contact you, but they threatened to hurt you if I did." "You have nothing to apologize for," I assured him, holding his still-toothed hand. "You saved those children. You're a hero." A ghost of his old smile flickered across his face. "Not me. You're the one who stormed the castle, Lou." "With a lot of help," I nodded toward Max, who was methodically working his way through a book of logic puzzles Mrs. Abernathy had brought him. "He's the one who recognized your watch." Ethan studied the boy with undisguised emotion. "Tyler's friend, yes, he kept your watch safe. Followed your breadcrumb trail. When Max realized we were talking about him, he approached the bed cautiously. You're awake. Thanks to you," Ethan replied. "Tyler told you about the watch." Max nodded. "Said it saved him, that you gave it to him to remember you by." "I gave it to several kids who escaped," Ethan confirmed. "Added the coordinates after I figured out what was happening. Hoped someone would find them." "And the second set of numbers?" I asked. "Inside the case, password to my cloud storage. Every document, photo, and video I managed to collect over 5 years. Uploaded whenever I could access a computer for maintenance." His eyes drifted closed briefly, the conversation taxing his limited strength. Enough evidence to bury Mercer 10 times over. Max touched the watch on his own wrist, Ethan's watch, which he'd refused to remove since our rescue. "Can I keep this?" Ethan studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "It served its purpose. Brought my sister to me. Helped save the others." His voice strengthened. "It's yours now." The boy's eyes welled with tears, the first I'd seen him shed despite everything he'd endured. "I'll take care of it, I promise." An FBI agent appeared in the doorway, apologetic but insistent. "Ms. Carter, we need your statement about the Mercer evacuation protocols." I sighed, reluctant to leave Ethan even briefly. "Go," my brother urged. "Max will keep me company." As I followed the agent into the corridor, I glanced back to see Max carefully showing Ethan his logic puzzles, their heads bent together in quiet conversation. "Two survivors. Beginning to heal." The media dubbed it the timepiece trafficking ring in the days that followed, focusing on the poetic justice of a father's gift to his son, ultimately bringing down a criminal empire. Mercer Industries' stock collapsed as arrests mounted and political allies distanced themselves. The charitable foundation was dissolved, its legitimate assets seized to create a victims' compensation fund. 1 week after the raid, as Ethan was preparing for transfer to a rehabilitation facility, he asked for a moment alone with me. "I need to tell you something," he said, voice stronger than it had been since his rescue. "About Max." "What about him?" Ethan took my hand, his eyes solemn. "I think he should stay with us, permanently." "I'm already working on guardianship," I assured him. "No, Lou, I mean adoption. He needs a family, a real one." The idea had been forming in my own mind, but hearing Ethan's voice it made it suddenly, vividly real. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Your recovery is going to take time, and I'm not exactly experienced with traumatized teenagers. Neither was Mom when Dad died, but she figured it out." Ethan reminded me. "Besides, I think we understand Max better than most people could." He squeezed my hand. "We're already a family. Let's make it official." Through the window, I could see Max in the hospital garden with Mrs. Abernathy, carefully tending to a small patch of flowers, finding healing in nurturing growing things. "Yes," I decided, "let's do it." 1 year later, the Carter Family Support Center for Trafficking Survivors opened on a crisp autumn morning, its bright red ribbon fluttering in the breeze. Ethan, still thin but steadier now, stood beside me with oversized ceremonial scissors, while Max fidgeted with his tie on my other side. "Ready?" I asked them both. Ethan nodded, and together, the three of us cut the ribbon as cameras flashed and applause erupted from the gathered crowd. The center had been Ethan's vision during his long recovery, a place offering comprehensive support for survivors of trafficking and exploitation. Using funds from the Mercer victim compensation settlements and generous community donations, we'd transformed a former community center into a sanctuary offering counseling, education, legal assistance, and most importantly, connection with others who understood. "Told you the blue tie looked better," Max whispered as we moved inside for the reception, his teenage awkwardness momentarily overshadowing the hard-won confidence he'd developed over the past year. At 15, he'd grown several inches, filled out with regular meals, and even joined the high school robotics team. The nightmares still came occasionally, but less frequently now. The adoption had been finalized 6 months earlier, making official what we'd all known from the beginning: we were meant to be a family. Inside, familiar faces greeted us. Mrs. Abernathy, now the center's volunteer coordinator; Derek Hood, left his corporate programming job to develop security systems for organizations protecting vulnerable children; Amara, whose expose on child trafficking had won a Pulitzer and launched a national conversation about exploitation. Most meaningful were the children, some from Mercer's operation, others from similar situations discovered in its wake. They came with new foster families or reunited relatives, their paths to healing as varied as their experiences. A few of the older ones would work at the center as peer counselors, turning their trauma into a force for good. As the ceremony concluded, Max approached us, his expression serious despite the celebration around us. "I fixed it," he announced, holding out Ethan's watch. The second hand was still skipping. I regulated it. Ethan's technical knowledge had found a willing student in Max, who showed remarkable aptitude for mechanical work. Together, they'd spent countless evening hours at the kitchen table, bent over watches, small engines, and electronic devices. "Perfect timing," Ethan said, accepting the watch with a proud smile. "I was just about to show Louise." He led us to the center's main hallway, where a display case had been mounted on the wall. Inside lay 3 watches on a bed of blue velvet. 2 were new gifts we'd exchanged last Christmas, while the center position awaited Ethan's original Timex, the watch that saved lives. Read the small plaque beneath. Ethan placed it carefully in position, the once broken crystal now restored, the case polished to a soft gleam. The crack remained a deliberate choice, a reminder that broken things could be repaired without erasing their history. "It's done its job," Ethan said softly. "Time for it to rest." Max touched the glass case gently. "Tyler would be proud." "They all would," I agreed, thinking of the dozens of children whose freedom could be traced back to this simple timepiece. As evening fell and the last guests departed, the 3 of us stood together in the quiet building, arms linked in the unconscious way we'd developed over months of healing together. "You know what this means," Ethan said, breaking the comfortable silence. "What?" Max asked. "We're officially ordinary people again," he replied with a grin. "No more heroics required." Max snorted. "Speak for yourself." "I have a physics test on Friday." As they bantered, I studied our reflection in the darkened windows. A cashier, an engineer, and a teenage boy, bound together by trauma and triumph. An unlikely family, forged in the crucible of terrible events, but a family nonetheless, unbroken, healing, together.